There you stood, holding on with all your might, clinging to people, to places, to promises that you thought would last forever. You trusted them with your heart. You gave them your time, your energy, your love. Every broken piece of you that you'd been gathering for years. You thought they were the ones who would stay, the ones who would understand, the ones who would walk beside you in your storms and celebrate with you in your victories. And you didn't just lose them. You lost yourself. The questions came first. Why? What did I do wrong? Could I have been better? Could I have held on tighter? Then came the anger, the bitterness, the suffocating ache in your chest. You felt betrayed, not just by them, but by life itself. It's easy to think they left because of you, that maybe you weren't enough, that you didn't deserve them. But let me tell you something right now. This isn't about rejection. This is about redirection. God saw what you couldn't, so He removed them. You see, there are conversations you weren't meant to hear, plans you didn't know were being made, hearts that never truly beat for you the way yours beat for them. God saw the betrayal in their intentions. He saw the cracks in their loyalty. He saw their hands ready to harm you when you weren't looking, so He removed them. Quickly, harshly, maybe even cruelly by your understanding. You begged Him to let them stay, but He knew the destruction they'd bring if they remained. He heard the things you didn't. He felt the things you couldn't. Do you think it was easy for Him? To watch you cry? To watch you question? To watch you crumble under the weight of what you thought was abandonment? Do you think He wanted you to hurt? No. But sometimes love doesn't come in the form of what you want. It comes in the form of what you need. You called it a loss. God called it a rescue. Let me tell you something about the God who removed them. He is not a God of punishment. He is a God of preparation. When He tears something out of your life, it's because it would have torn you apart if it stayed. When He closes a door, He isn't denying you a future. He's protecting you from one that would have destroyed you. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it feels unfair. But one day, you'll see why it had to happen. You'll look back and realize that losing them wasn't the end of your life. It was the beginning of your growth. You weren't being buried, you were being planted. Do you think they left because they were too good for you? No. They left because they weren't meant for you. They weren't strong enough to carry the weight of your destiny. Their hands weren't clean enough to build what you're about to create. Their hearts weren't pure enough to celebrate what's coming your way. You're not someone's backup plan. You're not a placeholder. You're not a second option. God saw the greatness in you, the greatness you've yet to see in yourself, and He decided to protect it. You thought they were forever. You thought they were part of your destiny, your future, your story. You held on with everything you had, even when your hands bled, even when your heart broke, even when the cracks in their loyalty were too deep to ignore. But one day they were gone. They slipped through your fingers, left without warning, and you were left standing in the wreckage, questioning everything. You thought you had lost a piece of your soul. You thought God had turned His back on you. But let me tell you something. God doesn't abandon His children. He protects them. He heard the whispers you couldn't. He saw the plans that were being made in shadows. He saw their hearts that pretended to beat for you but were filled with selfishness, deceit, and poison. And He said, "No more." You didn't understand it then. You begged Him for answers. You cried out in your pain, asking why He would take away the people you thought you needed most. But do you know what God saw? He saw how their presence would destroy you. He saw the destruction they would bring if they stayed. He saw how they would clip your wings, dim your light, and bury the greatness He placed inside you. You see, God's love is fierce. It's relentless, it's protective. And sometimes that love doesn't look like blessings wrapped in bows. Sometimes it looks like broken hearts and closed doors. Because His plan isn't to keep you comfortable. His plan is to make you unstoppable. And for that to happen, some people had to go. I know it hurts. I know the silence of their absence feels deafening. I know the void they left behind feels unbearable. But you weren't abandoned. You were spared. You weren't rejected. Let me tell you something about the God who removed them. He doesn't waste time. He doesn't make mistakes. When he moves, it's intentional. It's deliberate. And it's always for your good. Those people you cried over, they weren't meant to walk this journey with you. Their chapter in your story wasn't permanent. It was seasonal. Their role wasn't to stay. It was to teach you something. Maybe they taught you strength. Maybe they taught you to trust yourself. Maybe they taught you to recognize what you don't deserve. But their part in your life is over. And no amount of questioning or begging or mourning will bring them back. And if they're not coming back, it's because God has something so much better ahead. Do you think God removed them out of spite? Do you think he enjoys your tears? No. But he knows the cost of keeping people who weren't meant for you. He knows what you don't. That not everyone who enters your life deserves a permanent place in it. Some people carry storms in their hearts. Some people bring chaos to your peace. Some people smile at you while plotting your downfall. And God, in his infinite wisdom, doesn't wait for you to see the truth. He removes them before the damage becomes irreversible. God saw what you couldn't, so he removed them. You thought they were everything. You thought they were the ones who would stay, who would hold your hand through the storms and celebrate with you under the sun. You trusted them, gave them your heart, your time, your energy, all the fragile pieces of yourself you'd been carefully piecing back together for years. No explanations, no warnings, just a hollow silence where they used to be. And you were left standing there, surrounded by the shards of what could have been, questioning every moment, every word, every choice that led you here. And then came the whispers, the doubts, the voice inside your head that told you it was your fault. That if you'd only done more, been more, loved more, they would have stayed. But let me tell you something right now. Their leaving wasn't about you. Their absence wasn't your failure. Their departure wasn't your punishment. God saw what you couldn't, so he removed them. You see, while you were busy holding on to them, God was watching. He saw what you couldn't see, the conversations you weren't part of, the intentions behind their smiles, the weight they brought into your life disguised as love. God doesn't wait for you to understand. He doesn't wait for you to see the cracks or feel the sting of betrayal. He moves before the damage becomes irreparable. He steps in when he knows what's coming will destroy you if he doesn't act. You called it heartbreak. God called it protection. You called it rejection. God called it redirection. Because he knew the truth. He knew their hearts weren't pure. He knew their loyalty was conditional. He knew they weren't meant to walk with you into the future he's preparing for you. And so, he removed them. I know you don't understand it now. I know you're still holding the pieces, still trying to make sense of the loss. But trust me when I tell you this. God doesn't remove people from your life to hurt you. He removes them to save you. You see, some people aren't equipped to handle the weight of your calling. They aren't strong enough to support the person you're becoming. Their hands aren't clean enough to help you build what you're about to create. So God doesn't just take them out, he uproots them. Completely. Harshly. And yes, it feels cruel. Yes, it feels unfair. But what you don't see now, you'll understand later. Their presence wasn't helping you grow. It was holding you back. You thought they were meant to stay. But God knew they were only there for a season. They were a lesson, not a destination. A stepping stone, not a foundation. And while you're mourning their absence, God is already preparing what's next, because when God removes, he also restores. When he closes a door, he doesn't leave you in the hallway. He opens one so much greater than you could have imagined, but first, he needs you to let go of what you were holding on to. The things you thought you couldn't live without. The people, the plans, the promises that were never truly yours to begin with.